Hi everyone, we're going to get started. My name is Allison Schaff and I'll be your host today. I'm so excited for the wonderful webinar we have planned for you guys. But first, let's start with a few housekeeping items. You have two options for connecting to the webinar audio. You can either connect to the broadcast using your computer's speakers, or you can connect via phone. The dial-in information is available in the WebEx menu under Audio. On the drop-down menu, select the Audio Connection option, and you'll be prompted with the dial-in or connect via computer options. If you experience any technical difficulties with WebEx today, please contact WebEx support at 1-866-229-3239. I'll be typing this phone number into the chat panel for your reference during the webinar. Also, we'll be sending both the recording and the slides from today's event via email after the webinar. So I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Allyn Bailey is part of the Global Talent Acquisition Organization at Intel. As part of a specialized team, she designs, delivers, and measures strategic programs focused on making talent experience a key differentiator for Intel. Allyn combines her expertise in UX research, organizational development, and solutions design to generate standout experiences because she firmly believes that these experiences create behaviors and impact outcomes that make Intel an employer of choice. Tracey Parsons is Smashfly's own recruitment marketing whiz kid. She is the director of Smashfly's recruitment marketing practice, designed to help customers change their recruiting focus to how they interact with talent and measure outcomes at every step of the candidate journey. Tracey has extensive experience in client strategy, digital development, thought leadership development, and consulting at companies like TMP Worldwide and her own consultancy, Parsons Strategic Consulting. Tracey is an amazing person to work with, and she continues to blow me away with her insight into the discipline of recruitment marketing. And I have no doubt that she has some truly incredible insights to share with you in her presentation today. So Tracey, without further ado, take it away.
I appreciate that, and I'm really, truly, genuinely excited to be here talking to you guys today. It's a really interesting time to be in recruitment marketing and in talent acquisition, and everything changes so quickly, and our customers and our candidates are always changing. And, today we're talking passive candidates, and it's no wonder we call them purple squirrels because they're really squirrely. They're not searching job boards. They're not looking at organizations. They're just a different breed. And it's really hard to, quote unquote, get in front of them. And I always take umbrage with that idea of getting in front of somebody. I don't believe in that. It's kind of rude if you think about it. The idea of getting in front of somebody really is indicating that you're trying to block their path. And instead, I like to think about influencing that candidate journey as opposed to getting in front of them. And when we're talking about passive candidates, they're not searching for jobs. And so they're not doing that. How in the world are we going to build awareness of our employer brand? I've always found it really interesting in recruitment marketing because passive job seekers are exactly like shoppers. I mean, think about it. When we're not in the market for an airline ticket or a pair of jeans, I'm not visiting an airline site or a retailer. But it never prevents them from marketing and advertising to me and sending me emails and putting social posts out there. So the lessons of consumer marketing really should be applied to recruiting passive candidates. And it all comes down to, honestly, understanding and exploiting that understanding of human behavior. And I can tell you that there's a shortcut to everything that we're going to talk about today. It's a hack. And it honestly will change the way you communicate with your candidates. It's this. Your candidates are people. And we're people. They're humans. We're humans. So if you're interested in getting the people to do something, put yourself in their shoes. That's the trick. Because if you wouldn't click on it, neither will they. So if we want to learn some lessons from consumer marketing, we should put on our shopper hat for a little bit and think more deeply about this idea of, how we interact with marketing communications as shoppers. And let's take a minute and think of how we do that. How do we do that? Because if you think about it, We're all passive consumers. We're all shoppers, and we aren't always looking to buy another pair of shoes. Well, I am because I love shoes. But what about movies and travel and clothes? We're all shoppers. We're all customers. We've all given up an email address for an offer, a sale, or a purchase, or a job. And brands spend a lot of time creating emails and social posts and keyword combinations, retargeting ads. You know those ads that you see that follow you around the internet after you've visited something on Amazon? That's retargeting. They spend a lot of time doing that. And yet what do? We delete, we ignore, and we keep scrolling. So if we're seeing all these emails and social posts and ads from brands that we've done business with, why do we keep scrolling? At that moment, we were either not the right audience, it wasn't the right message, or it wasn't the right time. And let's look at how we interact with email first, because for me, email is really the lowest hanging fruit in terms of impact. And if we can learn how people interact with email, we can start standing out to our passive candidates via this channel and then apply those lessons to all the other channels. So let's talk about how we interact with email and how we use it when brands are marketing to us in our capacity as a shopper. So we're all taking an hour out of our day to be on a webinar. Meanwhile, the email keeps streaming in and piling up. And if you're anything like me, you have more than one email account. Actually, I have 5 because I'm a bit of an email hoarder. But we all get a ton of mail every single day to these accounts. How much mail? For me, I get about 100 email messages every single day. And most of them come into my personal account, you know, the accounts that we're emailing our passive talent. And it's the one that I use to sign up for stuff, like loyalty programs and talent networks. So if I'm getting 100 email messages every day, and I bet you are too, I bet you might even be getting more than me, how many stay in my inbox? On average, 3. 3 emails make it through the delete test, which means I'm deleting 97% of my emails. How many are you deleting? Or just scrolling past those social posts? And if we're putting on our human hat, we can see that our candidates are doing the exact same thing. They delete a lot of messages from us every single day. And when I think about the time and effort that all of these brands are making to reach me, to buy one more pair of jeans or an airline ticket or sell me something, it's just wasted. And we're all in the same boat. So if you're thinking out there that I'm probably receiving 100 to 200 emails every day, how many are you deleting? Guess what? So are our candidates. It comes back to these 3 things: audience, message, time. But for a moment, let's think a little bit deeper about the types of messages that make us delete things. You know, they're all missing the mark in some way. They're all missing the audience, the message, or the time. So I put together a few examples, and I've grayed things out to protect the innocent, because really nobody gets up in the morning wondering how they can annoy me with email that I'm not going to read. But here are a few examples of mails that I've received lately that ended up in my trash. So every now and then I get a message promoting an online dating service. And if you know me well enough, you know that I've been married for more than 20 years. So the chances are really solid that I'm not the right audience for this message, and it's going to get deleted. And this next one, these emails, I get these too, and I'm sure you do too. And it's like 7 or 8 paragraphs, and it's like what I call 5,000 words of thought leadership. Only most of the time, these thought leadership pieces are only tangentially related to what I do in talent. Because when I get a message that is super lengthy and say about benefit selection, something I literally know nothing about, it's the wrong message. And this is the one that I get most frequently. I've obviously signed up for way too many retailer messages because everyone wants to sell me a sweater or a dress or some more clothes. And I don't shop based on getting an email. I shop based on need. So the timing's off. And very rarely am I sitting at my desk wondering what I'll be doing on Friday night. I'm not thinking about going to a movie right now. And so I delete it and I move on. And I'm sure the great marketers at the movie theater companies, they've done their research on when people are planning their weekends and their activities, and they send it then. But rarely is it hitting me at the right time. Allyn, what do you think's happening?
I think if we think about this, there's a key component of this is really about audience, right? Let me give you an example. Let's look at the next one. Immediately, I get this in my inbox. Here's the first thing that I think about, right? It's got to be about me. This isn't about me. While I appreciate the fact that this company is kicking off their sale this weekend, I don't really care about their sale. This is not something I'm interested in. Trust me, if you've seen my house, I don't have any flowers, right? This is about them. They want to sell something to me, and it's pretty clear right up front. If it isn't about me, then it's going into my trash can. Understanding what makes me tick is going to be really critical. In this example, right, here they're sending me an email that I don't even have any idea how I got on this email distribution list in the first place. Or it's an email that I somehow tried to unsuccessfully unsubscribe from, and that didn't work. When that happens, they're getting deleted. Not only are they getting deleted, but they're making me angry. And if I'm angry, I'm not just angry at the fact I got this email, but I'm angry at the whole brand. And I'm going to hold them that anger for a while, forever, really. I don't let things go very easily. I'm a person who's going to file those complaints, and this is not the sort of thing that's going to help engage me next time you come at me. So if we think about all of this and think about kind of the fact that whether it's about me or are you targeting in the right way in the audience, it's really all about context, right? The context of the messages that you're sending to candidates. When are you sending them? What's in the message? Is the timing right? How do you know all of those things? There's so much to learn about how people interact with email and how we can impact them with that email. Let's switch our hat for a second and think about the world through the eyes of a passive candidate. The same things happen for us when we get job emails, right? I admit it. I've applied to jobs in the past. Maybe even I've applied to some of the companies and people who are on the line here today. I'm probably on your list. I may be on your list, right? Or better yet, I've been called, but I've never applied. I still get emails, and I still get emails from you. I say I'm sorry. I delete them. I'm a little better at LinkedIn. So if you send a request through LinkedIn, I might be probably likely to engage with you and have a deeper connection, but not always. And that's me. I'm a rare super connector. Like Tracey out there, I'm probably one of those people who, if you send me a request, I'm going to engage with you at some level through LinkedIn. The rest of the passive community is far less likely to take action on these things. And at the end of the day, that's what we're going for, right? Taking action is what we are looking for. What that leads us to this really key second takeaway. Our audience, the audience you're going after, is thinking about you 100% less time than we think they are. They're just not. And it even says so when we talked about it in the abstract, right? They're not responding to our opportunities as much as we want them to. And these passive candidates are not necessarily spending their days wondering when you're going to reach out to them the next time. Let's think about it. The average in-mail is deleted 75% of the time, which is actually better than a regular email marketing campaign. On average for our industry, 19.92% of emails are actually opened. And 2.32% of those have click-throughs. That's not a pretty number. That's not a huge amount. Looking at it conversely, if we send an email out to 100 people, only about 20 people will even open it. And then only 2 people ever end up where we want them to, because we're not mastering the right audience at the right time with the right message, which leads us to passive talent. Tracey, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, and Allyn, you're spot on, because they are thinking about us 100% less time than we think they are. So we have to give them a reason to click. So think about your reasons to click. To do that, let's take a look at the messages you keep, right? They're pretty consistent, and for me, they break down into 3 different buckets. The first one is people I know. Obviously, I'm going to keep messages in my inbox from people I know because I like my friends and I want to stay in touch with them. The same happens on social media. Things that from my friends on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter pop up on my feed, and I'm going to respond to them quickly. I'm going to keep those emails in my inbox. And the takeaway for talent acquisition, become a person they know. Spend the bulk of your time building relationships with your candidates so that when you do send them a message in their email or in their social feeds, they're going to respond to it. It pays dividends to become a person that they know, because that's the responses that those are the messages that they're keeping. Become a person they know. The second bucket is stuff I need to do. So, I kind of call these Dr. Evil messages. I need the info. These stay in the inbox until the action that's being requested of me has been completed or the date or the event has passed. The takeaway for talent acquisition here is if there are calls to action, if there are things that your candidates need to do or your passive talent needs to do, make it really clear. And if you become a person they know with stuff they need to do, it's more likely to stay in the inbox. And then there's the third one. For me, this is the holy grail, right? This is the valuable. And if you can send a message to a person that you know with stuff they need to do, with valuable information, jackpot, right? And remember a few minutes ago when Allyn was talking about the company that had the kickoff sale, that it wasn't about me? Valuable information messages are all about me. They tell me that I'm wonderful. They also share with me ways that I could advance my career and my industry. In fact, I'm going to expose a little bit about my family and my reputation in my family. There's an old joke in my family that there are 3 ways that you can get attention, 3 things that you can say to me to get my attention. The first one is, Tracey, you look beautiful today. The second one is, Tracey, I have money for you. And Tracey, I have a good idea is the third one. I love good ideas. And emails that share with me good ideas that are relevant to me as a shopper or as a job seeker, I love those. This is the content I don't delete. This is the content that keeps me from scrolling. This is the content that stays in my inbox. All emails want to be clicked. In fact, the link, the simple, lonely link, the link has one job. The link's job is to be clicked. If the link gets clicked, yay, he wins. But if the link doesn't get clicked, he fails. But what people fail to realize is that there's a third option, that they eventually get clicked. Which brings us to for me, the most important part of the marketing equation. Again, if we are talking to the right audience with the right message at the right time, it's magic. As I mentioned earlier, and Allyn was talking about, timing is the hard one. Time is the difficult one to pinpoint. And truly, timing is everything.
So we're trying to understand all of these pieces: audience, messaging, timing. Fundamental to that is understanding that we need to know a lot more about our audience. We assume we know who our audience is, but what we really know is what we want from them. Like, what skills are we looking for from them? Or where do we want them to be located? Or what do we want them to be willing to do? All this sort of information doesn't really help us tailor our message or add the relevancy that they need. I'm going to show you a picture of my favorite friend here. We joke about him at the office, my favorite friend, the Jason Bourne mouse. Well, he's not really Jason Bourne. He's just a mouse trying to get his cheese. See, over the life of this little mouse, he's had a variety of experiences. Some good, like eating yummy cheese, and some bad, like the time he watched his little mouse brother get his little mouse head caught in the trap while trying to get the yummy cheese. All those experiences make up who this mouse is and influences his behaviors. He learns, he adapts, he adjusts his point of view, and in this case, he literally adjusts his approach. He's like our target audience. He is a sum of his experiences. And understanding what makes him tick will allow you to better target information to him when he wants it and how he wants it, so that he cares and that he's willing to act on it. We can do that with things like personas and candidate journey maps. So we thought we'd take a few seconds and walk through what some of those tools could look like for you and what you might want to think about including in them. While it's important to know what makes your audience tick, there's some information that's more valuable than others. In particular, there's a set of 3 key questions or categories of questions that if you get the answer through watching your target audience's behavior patterns or through doing some qualitative research, you can do interviews or focus groups. And there's a lot of different mechanisms you can use to go out there and find out what your audience really thinks by talking to them. It's going to serve you very well. The first thing you want to know is, what is your audience thinking? How are they judging your content and your engagement? Do they care more about some things than others? What are those things? Second, what does your audience feel? What emotions are they having? Feeling is very visceral, and it drives my thinking patterns. Feeling is really super powerful. It's the most powerful thing in the experience space you can focus on, because it drives the third element that we need to know, which is, what do they do? And at the end of the day, do is what we're driving for. So let's put it all together and see what it can tell us. Many of you may have played around or done some work with, or maybe have some really advanced personas that you're working with. Some may not. Personas are a way for us to get a representative snapshot of who our audience is and what makes them tick. The first step in building it out is actually pretty simple and something many of us already have some access to. And that's looking at data that's pretty easy to find. Stuff like their behavior. We can see that in the data. For example, X% of the audience clicked X article, or X% of the audience was more likely to open the email and open an invitation from me on Facebook versus InMail. Those are all nice to know facts, and we can capture those. But what it doesn't tell me is why, and I want to know why they do those things, so I can have a better chance of getting them to do those things when I want them to do them, like join my talent network or complete an application for my hot job. So the next thing I need to do in building out my picture of my audience is I need to go get some qualitative data. And you can do that through some interviews with a representative sampling audience. You can do some focus groups. There's lots of ways to go and get that, as I've mentioned. But what you want to do when you're getting that information is focus on those second 2 pieces of the puzzle that we talked about. What are they thinking and what were they feeling? So that you can use that to map to either duplicate those feelings and thoughts to drive similar actions in the future, or change what you do to change what they think and they feel. Because if they think or feel different things, they will act differently. For example, if they didn't open up a lot of your emails previously, understanding why from their thinking and feeling component can help you adjust it so that they do. So the persona focuses on understanding the audience's motivations, their preferences, and not just what they do, but why. Why do I care? Why? Why do I care what they think and they feel again? Well, because if I know what they think and feel, I can use that to help drive what they do. And at the end of the day, like I said, that's what I want. That's the golden nugget for me. At the end of the day, I want my passive candidate, or any candidate in particular, to connect with me, join my talent network, for example, or apply to a particular hot job, or just get onto my application pool. Or I want them to refer others, because like people hang out together. If I spent time finding them, they may not be interested, but somebody else may be. So I'm driving them to very specific actions through my content. Mapping your audience's journey helps you tie in what you know about them from your persona work, that what they think, feel, and do, and what you want them to do, or your call to action. There's lots of different types of journey maps out there, and you can decide which one best meets your needs. In essence, a candidate journey map is looking at the steps your candidate goes through and helps you visualize what's working for them and what's not, and also why it may or may not be working. I also believe it can serve as a really great tool for you to help you understand what you should do, where you should focus your energies to get the most impact for your efforts. The most important thing, though, is that you remember you're mapping the candidate's journey. You're looking at what they're going through from their lens, and it should be from their point of view. In this map, which is a map that we use in our organization, a streamlined version of it, you'll see we not only looked at the current state of what the candidate was thinking, feeling, and doing, but we also wanted to think about what desired behavior outcomes we wanted them to do so that we could help work with our organization and our recruiters and our teams to think about how they might actually adjust their content and their messaging to meet the very specific call to actions that we were looking for. Tracey, I know that you guys have done some candidate journey mapping as well.
We have, and Allyn, we find these to be incredibly useful documents for not only Smashfly, our employer brand, but for our customers as well. On the screen, you'll see a genericized version of a journey map, and I applaud you, Allyn, for sharing the legit version of your journey map. But this is generic, and we like Intel look at the various stages, from need stage onto onboarding. And it's interesting because if you think back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I don't buy airline tickets and pants based on need. Neither do our candidates. They don't wake up in the morning wondering, I wonder who's hiring today, or I wonder what Intel or Smashfly is doing in recruitment marketing. They just don't. So we have to understand that journey. And we only do one different thing than the team at Intel. We look at what talent is expecting because we think that there's an opportunity to meet some expectations that are being unmet in the existing candidate journey. And it's really interesting when you look at all of the thinking, feeling, and doing and how that impacts their journey and what you can do as a brand to create content, calls to action, marketing materials, collateral, training for your recruiters that will help answer those expectations to help move that candidate further in the journey. And one of the things that's really stark to me is this. The candidate journey, the candidate journey, if you look at it, it's pretty terrible. So if you see, it's very, very stormy up until somebody calls them from the company. And that's not very many people. The journey's pretty terrible for your average candidate. That's just today. It doesn't have to be terrible. I think that one of the big misses in recruitment marketing today is giving people really authentic stories, giving people things that they can learn about your company through that journey because they want to know what it's going to be like to work there. The problem with the candidate journey today is that it's riddled with black holes and it lacks any real authentic information. And let's never lose sight of the fact that candidates are making a really big decision and passive candidates are making an even bigger decision. It's never easy to change jobs. It's a big deal and a big decision. And far too frequently, that big decision is made on gut. And we don't give them a lot of authentic information. And for passive candidates, that's a huge deal. And if we look at their journey, it's not a lot better. It does feel really nice to get a random call from a brand, but it's far too easy to pass because there's limited real authentic information about a company that feels true. And so the passive candidate journey is a little bit better up front, but it's still riddled with missing information and content to help move them along in the journey in a positive way. It's a big deal to passive candidates because they're making a decision to leave a company that they feel aligned with. They have alignment with that company and with their role there. So they need more than we're giving them, and we can give them that. Which leads to, passive talent takeaway number 4. It's important to know that their journey isn't a lot better. And they really do need more information than we could ever imagine. They're happy. They aren't looking. So you need to stand out by providing transparent information about the work, the impact, and the culture. So I'm going to show you a message that I got not too long ago in my LinkedIn, and it, for me, is gold. It tells me everything I need to know about the company and the opportunity. It tells me the brand. It tells me that I'm going to be a true leader. And guess what? It gives me a call to action, something that I can respond to, what I can do with this information. This message is a win, and it stays in my inbox because it has something that I want to take action on. Let's talk briefly about the content that passive candidates are hungry for. They want industry insights. They're dedicated to their career and the career that they're in. They might want to know how your company is driving the industry forward. They want to know a lot more about their teammates. They really want to know a lot about their teammates because they're going to be leaving something that's incredibly comfortable to something that's new. And we all know, if we're thinking about humans and putting our human hat on, humans do not like change, and they do not like ambiguity. And we're asking them to change, and we're doing it in ambiguous ways. So let's make it transparent and concrete. Tell them about the team. Give them tips and tricks to their trade. Be one of the people that they know. Give them something that's valuable, that they're going to be interested in sticking with. I'm going to tell you guys a little story. I'm a passive candidate, and you and your brand reached out to me on LinkedIn or email. And I don't take the bait this time, but I'm looking around the internet at your company and seeing on social who I know that works there, and I might visit Glassdoor, and trust me, I only read the free. But I might also read some of your company news. This is what Google is calling the 0 moment of truth. All that research that I might be doing passively about your company before I make any kind of decision to do anything with you. But if all those things not add up in the 0 moment of truth, I might do something very, very low-hanging, like follow you on social. And I'll scroll past a lot of your content in any given week. I will. But one day you post an article that makes me think about my job and career in a brand new way. So I join your talent network. And I get a nice confirmation message that sets my expectation about the network and maybe even asks me for feedback. I love providing feedback. And then one day you do it again. After months of me deleting your emails, one lands in my inbox from you, from your talent network. It's interesting and engaging and helps me further my career. I haven't applied, not even really thinking about it right now, but that email stays there, and I see it every day for a week. Think about how many times a day you look at your email inbox. And if those 4 to 5 hours that you're spending, that I'm spending in my email inbox, that your brand is passing through my eyes, you cannot buy that kind of impression from an ad network. That email stays there, and day in and day out, I look at it. And then something goes wrong at work, and I'm having a bad day. Can you guys sense the timing? The timing is right there because I've seen your brand in the inbox for a week now, and I have positive feelings about you because you keep telling me one of those things I love to hear. Tracey, I have a good idea for you, and maybe even a little money too. So I visit your career site, and I find something. And the angels are singing because somehow you've managed to nurture me from a passive candidate to an active candidate. And all it took was a compelling message and a bad day at work. We see audience, message, and time converge into a passive candidate on your career site actively looking for a role at your company. Allyn? Did I put you to sleep with my story?
No, you did not. You did not. You know, like all job seekers, I think everybody out there is just trying to find a bit of information. They're trying to find out about your company before they even click on your career site and start doing a search. And once they start getting to your career site, um, then they need to figure out what they want to do from there. And how do they go through that whole search process? The career site in general is a transactional tool. You know, I remember when I first started working here at Intel in the talent space, and one of the first things we started to do was look at our career site and try to understand what it is that we needed to do to make it more impactful and more powerful. And the first thing we figured out was we were leveraging our career site as a place to dump all the information we could possibly imagine to throw onto it that would tell people what we thought we wanted them to hear. We thought they would come to the site and leaf through it like a beautiful brochure with wonderful pictures, page to page to page. But that's not actually how people use the site. By doing a little candidate research and understanding how people actually leverage the site, what we found out was exactly this. The career site's transactional. They go there after they've had and found the information that they're looking for to take a very specific action. They want to find a job that they're looking for. They want to submit their qualifications. They want to connect with you. They want to do something very specific. But many times on our career sites, it's very hard to figure out what they're supposed to do because just like us, most companies have built career sites that are about going and exploring the big brochure of all the fabulousness that they have to offer. So the biggest switch we were able to make was transitioning from building a career site that was about the brochure to a career site that was about completing the transaction. That takes you to the fifth takeaway, which is they just want to transact. They don't make it you can't make it too hard for them. You've got them, you don't want to lose them. A great career site has some very strong and visible calls to action. In fact, all of your recruitment marketing work should have those very clear calls to action, which we've said about 1,000,000 times in the last few minutes. We have to make it very easy for people who are in a pinch for time, like passive candidates, to raise their hand and say, I'm ready to learn more. Just come and tell me. I'm ready to apply. Show me where. There's massive research on conversion rates being impacted by the placement of your call to action, the wording, even the color of the button and the size can impact your conversion. You don't need to go and do all this research all on your own and start over. It's available to you, and you should go out and find it and start to employ it in your processes. First, your calls to action should be above the fold. Let's look at where we put some of our buttons, for example. You'll notice we realized building our talent network was critical for us. We wanted to spend a lot of time on the call to action to build out our pipeline. So we made a strategic decision to put right on the top, above the fold, a very specific call to action around joining our talent network. Let's take a look at some other examples. Which one of these are you more likely to click on? If you say save or join, okay. When your guys are supported by research. Research tells us that more people are likely to click on save than on join. Actually, sorry, the other way around. Join than save. Sorry. Because people want to be connected to others. Same question. Which one of these are you more likely to click on? The other piece of research tells us that the brighter colored the button, your conversions are going to go up by as much as about 35%. Notice the difference between the blue and the green. Which one does your eye get drawn to? And when you make the button bigger, you can see a 10% increase in conversions. Again, which one is your eye drawn to? The big, colorful one. Adding the word my, as in submit my application, produces a 90% increase in click-through rates for consumer brands. That's pretty crazy. That something as simple as a button that is larger, brighter, and more personalized can increase your conversion rates into your talent network and your ATS. We have to apply the basic principles of consumer marketing to recruitment. And as I mentioned, the data is all out there for us to learn from. So again, they'll know what to do if you tell them what to do, or they'll just leave you. But at the end of the day, if you spend the time and energy to figure out how to guide them very specifically to the action you wanted them to take and put in front of them a very easy way in which for them to take that action, they'll do it. Tracey?
So if we go back to my story for a minute, and you've nurtured me into an active candidate, and you have the calls to action above the fold. They're a nice on-brand but complementary colored button that's bright, and it encourages me to search. And lo and behold, I find a position that's a match for what I'm looking for, and I'm really excited. And I land on the job description, and I see this. So let me talk about job descriptions for a minute. The job description is where if all of that work that they're doing ahead of time is the zero moment of truth, for me, the job description is the first moment of truth. This is where they're making a decision. And this is a huge problem when we're trying to recruit and convert passive candidates. You see, most job descriptions are simply a requisition that's been put on the internet. When I think requisition, I think computers and office furniture, not humans. I would like to requisition a new computer with a wireless headset, and it needs to have a built-in camera and all this memory, and it should be light and durable. That is not what we should send to requisition Kevin. Kevin is a person. And while we need Kevin to have a specific set of skills to do the job, he's still a person. And we're not talking to people in most job descriptions today. It looks like we're requisitioning Siri, and we're not. We have to start building job descriptions that are designed to communicate with people. We have to speak to them in real language, in authentic ways about the job that they're going to be doing. We need to tell them what's going to matter most to them and tell them what's in it for them. But it has to be real, it has to be true, and it has to be authentic. It cannot be built to be appealing to everyone. It should tell a story and paint a picture. My dear friend Ann Nimke at The Good Jobs once said, a great job description is like a love letter to the right candidate. So let me show you a job description that we did recently at Smashfly. My very first week at Smashfly, I reworked all of the job descriptions. And for me, it was the lowest hanging fruit. We know our brand, we know our company, we get it. And I then spent some time talking to the people who are high achievers at the company to build this new job description. So we talk about impact. We talk about the things that make our company unique and make our brand, true and authentic to people who work here. And one of the things that stands out is impact. So we talk about impact. We also talk about the characteristics that make people successful in these roles. We want to tell the story up front that will engage the reader and give them a real sense of what it means to work here. We've developed our candidate journey map, so we know that they're missing key, critical information about what it means to work here. So we deliver that in the job description. And when we did this, we started seeing feedback from our candidates. They knew we're an automation company. They knew it was automated, but the way that we communicated made them feel respected. It made them feel like they would fit in, and this came from somebody that was hired at Smashfly recently. And finally, one of our customers said, I can't believe how inclusive these job descriptions are. And while I love a good warm fuzzy as next to the much guy, here's what matters most to me. The act of retooling our job descriptions led to a 293% increase in completed applications. So when you're thinking about the kind of incremental change you can make when it comes to attracting passive talent, start with your job descriptions. Job descriptions that tell a story, that don't read like you're trying to procure a desk. They matter more than we realize to passive talent. Which leads us to passive takeaway 6. Passive candidates want to be inspired. We have to tell them why this job is worth their time. And we have to measure. And Allyn's going to talk a little bit about measurement.
I'm hoping that as you're listening to this, you're getting some ideas of things you want to go and try, and figure out what may work and may not work for your particular audiences and for your organization. But as you go and try this stuff, you're going to want to know what ends up being really effective. So here are some ways that we found measurement and data to be helpful in answering that question. First, we can look at the data that we're able to get to tell us if it's effective in creating the impact that we wanted. And if it's not getting the impact, help me diagnose why so I can adjust it. At the end of the day, guys, for me, I hate putting money and effort into things that don't get me the return that I'm looking for, or they just don't provide the same amount of value to me. So looking at effectiveness is really critical. The second one is looking at details to see if the data is giving me, to see if there's any insights that I can add in to flush out and provide more depth and context to my personas, my journey map, and my overall audience behavior patterns. I'm going to give you an example in a second of some data that we found just looking at how people behaved that told us a lot of information about a particular candidate type that we didn't know. Third, I want to find out how the campaign or effort is actually impacting my pipeline, right? Because again, I'm doing this in order to bring more passive candidates to engage with me inside my pipeline. And I don't just want anybody. I want the people who are going to be the right fit for me. So rather than focus on just getting huge amounts of volume, I want to understand the health of my particular pipeline, not just by volume, but also by the right targeted, qualified candidates that are going to help move my organization forward. So if we look at this, I'm going to show you a real-life example of some real-life data and show you how this all plays out. In this example, we had a small passive candidate pipelining email campaign that we ran. And we were searching for a very specific type of candidate, a very niche set of skills. So what we did was sat down and said, let's look at our persona journey map and craft a very deliberate message that will hit the right level of content and help them feel and think a certain way so that they'll drive to very specific calls of actions that we embedded. And then we waited to see what happened. And this is how we looked at the funnel of different types of results that we got. These are all results that many of you are able to track either through your ATS systems, maybe you're tracking them through your awesome recruitment marketing infrastructure tools or your CRMs, or maybe this is information that now that you see what you might be able to do with it, you might want to think about how you can track. The first set of information that we're looking at are views and clicks. What this told me a lot about was what content the candidates or the target audience I was going for had a preference for. And we use that information to feed our data picture, particularly around the persona. If I had more clicks on one type of content over another, then that told me something. This is that example I was telling you about where we learned things that we didn't know we were going to learn. We have social media icons on our email distribution that went out. And we were able to look at those social media icons and found out that this particular audience was more attracted to YouTube than they were to any other social media outlet by huge numbers, like 3 to 1. It was a little nugget of information that wasn't necessarily a funnel pipeline data piece, but informed our persona quite a bit and helped us understand that if we could build attraction campaigns in the place where they were at, we might be able to increase our volume. Next, we looked at applicants, number of people who completed talent forms, resume uploads. These are all great data points, and they connect my CPA, right, and how effective my messaging and approach were. And then finally, I looked at the pipeline health data. And these are the types of data points where we look at that tell us, did the leads we bring in, were they actually relevant? Did they actually start the hiring process? And it tells me if I got the right audience to take action. Not just anyone, but the people who ended up being right for my pipeline. So there's lots of opportunity for us to collect data. The question is, how do we look at that data to help interpret it and help us drive our passive campaigning activities? The way we do things today isn't engaging our passive talents. lengthy job applications, processes that lead nowhere, and a lack of real, authentic information that tells me what's in it for me isn't there. We've built walls and we have built walls and one-size-fits-all experiences when it's really a one-size-fits-none experience. Everybody's unique. Instead of making our applicants and our applications more cumbersome to cut down on our, let me take this back for a second. We have this challenge. We have things like applications, and we think we're going to go and resolve it by making them more cumbersome to cut down on the number of serial applies that we get. We should instead be focusing on things like content and marketing campaigns. Those are the things that help people screen themselves in and out of our system. Because people will look at the information that's provided to them, and they'll start to understand the real story, the authentic story of who you are as a company, and be able to make that key decision for them, the thing that they will feel that will drive them to take action to apply to you. They will feel connected and as if they might belong. The hard thing about passive talent is that they're not behaving within our paradigm. Shifting our paradigms, that's really hard. We have to shift our paradigm and processes and thinking if we're going to achieve our goals of finding, attracting, engaging, nurturing, and converting these passive candidates. Sometimes the solution isn't making it harder for them to do things. It's in making it more clear, or it's in making it more transparent, particularly for passive talent. We can use automation in a way that makes a candidate feel like it's high touch. It doesn't have to feel robotic. We have to find new ways to get our messages out to passive talent by using our own employees to amplify those messages, to refer other great passive talent to us. And once we get them in, we have to treat them with respect and give them real insight into our company. Fundamentally, passive candidates are humans, but passive candidates are exactly like consumers. They're like you. They're researching your product, which in this case is a job or a company. And they're looking for deeper insights and engagement with you. And they want to know that they can make the leap, and if they make that leap, it's going to be worth it. So we owe it to them to create experiences for them that provide them insight and meaning and help them build those connections to understand how they would fit in to your organization. The relationship between talent and our employer brand is significant because in the end, we both need each other. We need their talent to grow our companies. They need our companies to grow their careers. We need their skills to build our next feature. And they need our environment to build their great next professional achievement. We need each other. We have so many great things ahead of us, and passive talent is a great way to help us get it if we can figure out how to get to them and get them involved in our processes.
All right. Allyn, Tracey, thank you so much for that awesome presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope our audience did too. To everyone still on the line, thank you so much for joining us today. Before you go, I just want to say a quick word on Smashfly Transform. That's the world's first ever recruitment marketing conference that we're hosting here in Boston. And to everyone on the webinar call today, we wanted to give you an exclusive discount code so you can save $500 off your registration cost. The code is SECRETS, that's all caps, and it'll allow you to save $500 on each individual registration. So use it for yourself, use it for your team members. We want everybody and their mom to come to Smashfly Transform. And that code is only good through the end of September, so make sure to get those registrations in. Just go to transformrecruitmentmarketing.com where you can learn about the agenda, all the amazing speakers we'll have, the fun evening events, and you can register there as well. So just apply that code when you're checking out, and I look forward to meeting you all at Transform. Come up and say hi. All right, well, thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with us, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.